Hello YouTube, this is Bruno. Today I will showcase a farm that provides both rooted dirt, which is then converted to clay and can be smelted to terracotta, and overworld trees. It has two modes, one that produces dirt and oak logs, and one that produces the other tree types. We can farm all trees except dark oak, namely birch, spruce, jungle, oak, and even acacia logs. Ever since we got the ability to turn moss into rooted dirt, I wondered if we couldn't design something like a tree farm that just pushes out the dirt block along with the logs. And since this is something like a tree farm, wouldn't we be able to use it as a tree farm as well? Turns out this is perfectly possible. And even though I didn't succeed to switch the farm modes between dirt and tree farming with just one lever, it takes only about a minute to change the mode from Azalea mode producing dirt and oak wood and tree mode producing the other tree types. In dirt or Azalea mode, the farm provides about 1,300 clay and roughly 4,000 oak logs per hour. In tree farm mode, it provides between 6,000 and 7,000 logs per hour for birch, spruce and jungle, a bit less for acacia. It consumes about 4,600 bone meal per hour. Minecraft 1.19 gave us a way to farm terracotta, even though the process is rather complicated. We can convert stone to moss by bone mealing moss. If something generates on a moss block, we'll have to remove it. There can't be any carpets or grass, something on the moss. Then we place an azalea sapling on the block, which has to be done by the player, and grow it. And this will convert the moss block to dirt, or rooted dirt to be precise. Then we can push the block out or just get rid of the azalea tree and use a water bottle to convert the rooted dirt to mud. This can be done using a dispenser. And the mud will eventually dry if we push it over blocks with a dripstone below, converting it to clay. And the clay, of course, can be harvested using a silk touch shovel or using TNT, in which case it drops as 4 clay balls, which can be crafted back to clay. And the clay, of course, can be smelted into terracotta. So if we can automate this process, we got a terracotta farm. Now there have to be 2 steps because the player can't at the same time plant the azalea trees and then break the clay and put it into a furnace. But we can do most of this process using an AFK player who plants the azalea trees. We push out the rooted dirt, convert it to mud, push it over dripstone, slowly enough that most of it is dried, and then we break the clay using a TNT duper. In the world download I didn't add a storage system, but the clay balls are then collected in a shulker box loader and can be crafted back to clay and smelted to terracotta. Conveniently, the oak logs that we also gave will supply us with fuel, should we need any fuel, because we can turn them or part of them into charcoal. Other YouTubers like Amango provided contraptions to create dirt automatically. His farms do not make an attempt to harvest the logs, and of course they don't double as tree farms. So on the Jcraft server, where I play my survival world, I've already built farms for nether trees and mangroves, but I was missing a farm for the other trees. So a combined dirt and tree farm was exactly what I needed. The basis for this farm is a rather simple tree farm with the usual crushers and double piston extenders to push out the logs, allowing it to farm trees like spruce that need a 5x5 empty space. The player stands in there and uses an auto clicker to hold down use. One dropper in the back will feed the player the saplings, and the dispenser bone meals the sapling until it grows. All drops go into a water stream, and the saplings are filtered out and sent back to the player. And we use a TNT duper. This TNT duper is a design by Scorpio that was modified by Enix04, and it's great because it allows the TNT to explode at different heights. And this base farm generates enough saplings even for jungle trees, which have a lower rate of saplings if you crush the leaves. In there is a shulker box unloader that provides the bone meal, or you could bring in the bone meal directly from a bone meal farm. The farm runs on a clock and does not use growth detection. This reduces the rates, of course, but it gives us the necessary space to add the redstone we need for the mud production. I designed this farm from scratch, but I would figure it's not different from many of the tree farms that are out there on YouTube. It works with jungle, birch, spruce, and also with oak if you place one block to limit the height. It does also work with acacia, but for this we will have to make a small modification that we'll come to in a moment. We will, however, need to make some modifications for azaleas. We can't use the crushers here for reasons that I'll explain in a moment. So we disable one side completely, so this side does not move. and reduce the other side to pushing in only the redstone block that we need for the double piston extender by taking out the slime and honey blocks and the fence gates in one of the columns. To create moss, we push in stone from a stone generator. The stone is moved over here and pushed upwards one block. Then we have a dispenser facing into a moss block that converts the highest stone block to moss. For both blocks, a piston is fired immediately after the conversion to remove any carpets and grass, because the conversion works only if there's nothing on this block. Then a player places the Azalea sapling immediately on the moss block, and when the tree grows, we'll not only push out the logs, but also the dirt in the bottom. We could simply push this dirt block towards the TNT duper or blast chamber if you don't use dupers, and break it along with the logs. But here in this farm, we'll split the output and push the dirt towards a module that first converts the dirt to mud, pushes it over blocks with dripstone below, and dries it to clay. Note that cobblestone can happen if you unload the farm while running, but this won't break the farm. However, there's a small chance that the TNT duper breaks, so I recommend to turn off the farm if you leave. After pushing the mud over 3 of these dry sections, pretty much all of it is converted to clay, and we then use a conveyor belt and a few more pistons to push the clay towards the TNT duper. Now let's have a look at the redstone. It could be made more compact, but I tried to keep the circuits visually separated so you get a good idea what's what. This command block is only used to give the player 1 Azalea for each turn of the clock. Otherwise, the farm and the world download is fully compatible with survival play. In the back we have a clock that controls the farm. It's uneven, it's off for about 6 redstone ticks to run the crushers and on for about 10 redstone ticks to bone meal the saplings. The crushers and pistons in the middle are the usual double piston extenders. Essentially it's a stacked version of this double piston extender here. The main thing is that here we have a log of some kind, because otherwise some tree types like spruce wouldn't grow. And this double piston extender retracts also the log back to the original position. Of course we had to wire it in a way using a bit of terracotta so that it doesn't stick to the slime pushers, and the redstone block provide the final signal. This is the dispenser that bone meals the sapling, and we have a small item elevator to bring in the bone meal. If the crushers are active, we stop the dispenser bone mealing the Azalea block by pushing out 1 observer of the clock. The remaining observers are just to power all of these droppers here. In the back we generate a stone block just before the crushers activate. The stone is pushed in and converted to moss immediately after the pistons in the center have retracted 1 block. Like this. This leaves enough time to activate the pistons, clearing the top of both moss blocks. To convert the dirt, you first push it out using a smart piston. Here I use mostly 0-tick pistons, but you don't really need to do this. The dirt will come in at a slow enough pace that the normal smart piston works. Then follows a contraption where 1 dispenser that is hidden behind the dirt right here, filled with water bottles, converts the dirt block into mud. Below the dispenser is a standard item filter that sucks out the empty bottles. A little item elevator in the back moves the empty bottles back to another dispenser here on top that faces an infinite water source. The second dispenser must be filled completely with water bottles. Otherwise, 1 filled water bottle might end up in here and it would break the contraption. So it shoots out a filled water bottle. This is sucked up by the hopper below here and moved into the dispenser with water bottles. Then we use a series of smart pistons to move the dirt where it can dry. We spread it out 12 blocks. Here on this side we also use a smart piston row to push it over, and then it is pushed up and over here and once again up. In the end we move it over 3 platforms with dripstone below. At the current rate this will convert about 98% of the mud blocks into clay. Then we use this conveyor belt here that is set to a somewhat leisurely pace of 1 block per 4 redstone ticks, so we don't need to 0-tick the remaining pistons. A series of smart pistons will push the clay towards the TNT duper, which will break the clay and the remaining mud blocks. all blocks are flushed into the water collection. A simple item sorter pulls out whatever saplings we're currently using and transports them to the player using this water elevator, but this is mostly relevant for tree farm mode and not really for azalea farm mode, because there are very few azaleas coming through here. I use a simple moss farm to create the azalea saplings. Instead of flushing all the output towards composters, I flush them first over an item filter after grouping them to stacks using the slab, and I will filter out the azaleas and the flowering azaleas. I could also filter out moss carpets if I wanted to. If I don't, I could just block this redstone here and disable the filter. And of course I will filter out the bone meal that is generated using this row of composters here. These saplings are not only used to create azalea trees, but also as fuel in my furnace array. The last component in this farm is of course the TNT duper. We use scaffolding to send the signal if the TNT duper is enabled or not, and we can use this clock to control the height at which the TNT explodes. The farm is not optimized. It's quite possible that the rates can be improved by tweaking the timings, but we can't just simply tweak the clock, as any faster pace would require a different stone generator to avoid generating cobblestone, as lava needs 1.5 seconds to set and we need 1 tick for the piston. Obviously it's tempting to add growth detection, but this would need to be triggered only if the block turns from moss to coarse dirt and not if it turns from stone to moss, which makes this challenging. You can turn off the farm by just turning off the clock here, and this trapdoor relays the signal to the TNT duper on top. Now let's discuss how to switch between dirt production and tree farm. The problem is that in azalea mode we can't use the crushers, because these trees grow in a somewhat irregular pattern. Azaleas, like acacia trees, can generate 2 logs at the same height. These are the possible positions where logs can generate. A single tree might look like this. This is not a problem, but it could also look like this. And here we would reach the push limit with the crushers. And of course, these crushers, if they are activated at the same time, would only push this block by 1 block. This block would end up in the middle here. It depends a bit on the redstone order, which crushers come first. But basically, the crushers on the wrong side would get stuck. There are still ways around this, but the only benefit of the crushers here are more azalea saplings, and as we get a lot of azalea saplings from a moss farm, it's not really worth the effort here. So let's have a look at the steps to convert this farm back to a tree farm. First, we enable the crushers. On this side, we have just locked them out, so you just have to flick the lever. On the other side, we have to rebuild the crushers, filling in the slime and honey blocks and the fence gates. Then we have to clear the logs on the side here, so that the crushers are not at the push limit. It can push in. They will generate only in the column where you place the saplings though. You'll want to take out the azaleas here and perhaps replace them with the correct saplings. And of course we need to disable the stone generator in the back, which can be done by blocking this redstone line here, or just flicking this lever. And for tree farms you might want to use different timings. For oak and for birch you might want to have 2 ticks less here. And finally you'll have to remove one of these sticky pistons here in the back so that the dirt block is not pushed out. And you're good to go. Just power up the clock and start farming trees. However, we have to talk about sapling efficiency. There's no problem at all with birch, oak and spruce. But jungle trees may be problematic because they generate less saplings than other tree types. And of course, we have the added redstone here at the bottom, and a lot of saplings get caught on that. So if you want to farm jungle wood, you'll have to catch the saplings that land here on the far side of the farm, on the redstone that we used to convert the moss blocks. So basically, we have to catch the saplings that would otherwise land on this redstone here, and the easiest way to do it is to replace the top layer of the redstone with hoppers, leading into a dropper. The dropper is powered using an additional block and a piece of redstone over here, using the same clock that powers the bone meal elevator. So everything that lands in here will be dropped from this dropper into the water stream. It's still not a complicated change, but unfortunately it's a few more necessary steps for conversion between dirt and jungle tree mode. As for Acacia, I didn't really design this farm for Acacia trees because Acacia trees can also grow in weird patterns like this. So you would have 2 logs on one height, which is a problem for this farm. However, Gecko did a nice video on how to adapt a tree farm for Acacia production. I will link it in the description. So he introduces a delay between the crushers and fires the piston in the middle twice. So yeah, let's walk you through how the process works. In this case, we will fire the pistons on the right side first, along with the pistons in the center, like this. We will have pushed the blocks to the middle and have pushed them out by at least 1 block. Now we retract the pistons. So the inner pistons have already retracted 1 block. The redstone blocks have retracted, so they are no longer powered. But on the other side, we push in the redstone blocks a second time. So now this side pushes the block in the middle, and the pistons in the middle are fired a second time. So without delay it looks like this. And this modification worked perfectly fine for me, with rates of roughly 5,000 acacia logs per hour. But to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with acacia farming, so please leave a comment if you run into any issues. In any case, please have a look at the description of the videos, because if I have to make any corrections or additions, I can only change the description in the raw download. The easiest way to introduce this separation is like this. So this is the signal for the double piston extenders in the middle, and we feed it on 2 sides, and on one side we use a 6 redstone tick delay, or 0.6 seconds. Now you could leave this change in for all tree types. It would make the farm just a bit slower for the other tree types, but if you want a faster version, all you have to do is to replace these repeaters with redstone dust. Acacia trees can grow to the side, and as you can see from the leaves, in areas where the crushers are not active. I added a few fence gates and a bit of terracotta to prevent acacia trees from growing in this area. Another rather important addition is this terracotta here on the side, which of course can remain for all of the farm types, because leaves will generate here and could update a quasi-powered piston at the wrong time. Basically, if this redstone dust is already powered, but this not yet, and then a leaf decays here, this would update the piston would fire, and if this happens in the wrong moment, this can break the piston wall. Just place any non-stick blocks, like terracotta, or pumpkins, or melons, or furnaces, back here, so that no leaves can generate there. As for the timing, we have increased this line to the maximum of 12 redstone ticks, to have a bit more time for the bone mealing. This is the redstone line that controls the disabling of the clock. So this controls the piston that pushes out this observer here. And because the crushers will take 6 ticks longer, we also added in a little delay and a pulse extender here. If you don't do this, the farm may require a bit more bone meal, but it's probably not very crucial. A few closing remarks concerning this build. Again, you can use simple smart pistons here. You don't have to use zero-tick pistons. If you use a system like this to enable this piston wall, which is an observer that is notified if the next row is pushed in, then please make sure that there's no dripstone below. If this block was mud and it would convert to clay, it would trigger the pistons and this could break the transport system. The same is true here for this conveyor belt. I tried to eliminate all dependencies on a redstone update order, and I built this farm in several locations. However, please check the descriptions, it's quite possible that I have missed a spot. The world download contains 3 versions of the farm. The first one is the Azalea mode. The second version is the farm converted to tree farm, but without the adaptations for sapling efficiency, so we haven't changed the redstone here. So this would be for birch and for spruce, and for oak if you like. And the final version and third one is the one that does contain the additional hoppers to pick up the saplings and the blocks to block acacia trees from growing in the wrong spot. It is also set to acacia mode using the somewhat slower timing. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you want to see more content like this, and leave a comment if you want to see a build tutorial or have any questions. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye!